This is Ryan Brogan from East Coast, and this is my chapter of As the Story Grows.
Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Ryan Patton. This week, I'm super excited to introduce East Coast frontman and my friend, Ryan Brogan, to the podcast. As you'll hear in this episode, Ryan and I go back and have a deep connection with East Coast. Ryan and I previously played at a church together. My project, Echo Broke Alone, has played a handful of shows with East Coast. I tracked and mixed the band's debut EP, St. Elizabeth's. I played guitar for the band while they were promoting their second EP, and my label released that EP, If I Sleep, on vinyl. East Coast released Finn late in 2020, and I floated the idea of having Ryan on the podcast back then. I'm glad we finally made it work. Ryan talks about the musical influence of his brothers, East Coast origins, history, and future, plus a look into being an indie band in the DC scene. This was a super fun conversation, and I'm excited to share it with you. So I hope you enjoy this week's chat with Ryan Brogan of East Coast.
Off the straight lines, we had a hard time. Let it go. No, but I guess if the timing's perfect, if we stare low.
You grew up in Birmingham?
I did, Birmingham, Alabama. I moved there when I was, I think, 4. I was actually born up in Michigan.
Okay.
And we lived in Chicago for a few years. So my family is like half like really north, like Contact Paper and Don't You Know. And the other half of my family is like truckers and like super Southern and like fries of the same bacon grease every day. So
that's crazy. What was growing up like?
It was good. I mean, my family, I have 2 brothers and a sister. I had a pretty big family growing up. And my parents are, they're pretty laid back. So, the thing I always go back to was like my parents didn't care how much noise we made if we were making music. So that was like
an easy gateway.
Yeah, it was an easy gateway. So it was pretty chill. We I was ready to get out of Birmingham by the time I was like, in high school, but I enjoyed growing up there. So
yeah,
the South has its merits.
Yeah. What got you into music?
Well, so both my parents were musicians. My mom's pianist, and she's just always like accompanying people, piano lessons. We had just piano lessons by default pretty much as soon as we could like, sit for more than like 10 minutes at a piano. So, and then my dad actually went to school for like vocal performance. He went to University of Michigan. So, growing up in like church, my dad was a music minister. My mom also was like the elementary school, like music teacher. So it was just music kind of all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like my mom was always playing piano. My dad was usually like practicing something, and there were just various instruments around the house. So there's always something to get into. And then we listened to a lot of like, my parents had a lot of like classical music going growing up, which was, I think made a pretty big impression on me early on. So
yeah. What drew you to playing guitar?
My older brother got a guitar from like a neighbor. It was like, just think of like the crappiest, like shit gray, like copy Stratocaster and a Gorilla. I don't know if you remember those Gorilla amps.
Oh yeah.
Like Gorilla amp. And he got, just like a neighbor was like cleaning out a basement. He got that. He was probably like 13 or 14. This is my older brother. He's 4 years older than me. And he just like immediately started learning like Nirvana and just like your classic like 90s, like first riffs. And I'm sure like for everybody else in the house, it was just horrendous noise. But my recollection was like, he so
good.
Yeah. He was like playing this like, Come As You Are over and over for 8 hours. And it just sounded exactly like it did on the radio. So I just wanted to do whatever he did. What really cemented it was we went on a beach trip, as a family, and he like brought the like crappy acoustic guitar that my dad had along and like played it on the beach, and like girls just like came up or talked to us, and I was just like, done.
That's
sold,
it. Yeah.
Playing guitar. This is my future.
That's funny. Did he ever try to like force you to play drums or bass to like form a band? It's like, you got to play the other instruments.
I mean, kind of. So like my parents were excited that we were taking up any instrument. So like we saved up and got a really crappy drum set. And I had a brief stint as a drummer.
Nice.
When I was like probably 12, 13. So we both played guitar, but we couldn't play Led Zeppelin songs together if we were both playing guitar. So, but that was short-lived. Pretty much as soon as my younger brother, who was like very competitive, started taking drum lessons, and like within 2 months surpassed what I had, figured out in about 2.5 years. So
yeah,
I went back to guitar, and then we just kind of like traded off between guitar and bass. So,
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Was that your like the band you like learned to cut your teeth on, or? Pretty
much. I mean, we never played for anybody other than like occasionally my grandmother would just like come downstairs and like, like she would drag a chair just like in the middle of all three of us. And we'd be like playing like, some horrendous mix of, death metal jazz stuff. And she just loved it. But that was, other than that, for years, we would, especially on like holidays, and we would all be at home together. My brother would be back from college. We'd go down to the basement and we'd just play for like 4 hours straight. And that was that was pretty much how I learned to play guitar.
That's cool. Through that time, were you aware of like a music scene happening in Birmingham, like bands like Haste or Furnace Fest and Take Hold Records and whatnot?
I definitely was aware of like Furnace Fest. And, if I had been a less shy kid, I was kind of in this weird thing where it's like, I grew up like evangelical Christian, and, so like church music, and like, it wasn't until I was in middle school, kind of early high school, that I realized that there was such a thing as like Christian rock music. And so it's like, and I didn't really have a lot of friends who were going to concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
So I never really went to like Furnace Fest or any of those, which I totally regret. And in hindsight, there's a lot of great bands that, were playing at like the Nick and other like local places around, 5 Points Music Hall, that I missed.
Yeah.
Cause I was just in this different, I was just like, we listened, like my parents were not, I went to church with like the kids who had to like to burn all their like secular CDs. But
oh man.
I had the Weezer Blue album that I listened to on repeat, and, I cringe on this one a little bit, but I definitely had the Creed CD, My Own Prison, Cake, one. Fashion Nugget, which was totally not a Christian friendly, but so it's like I had that music. My parents kind of didn't care. I listened to it, but I wasn't I was like not totally aware of the scene.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got into a band in high school by way of one of my friends, Jennifer, who was playing bass. And that band kind of turned me on to like a whole, like I played my first show with them. They turned me on to like all this kind of, this like whole new thing of like kind of indie music and all of that.
Yeah.
You know, stuff that was beyond like what was on mainstream radio at the time.
That's cool. Did that band have a good name?
That band's name was the Evil Sunflowers.
The Evil Sunflowers. All right.
We played 2 shows. The second show we closed with one of like a friend of the band. He got up on stage. Well, context, we're playing this show. You know, our friends came out, you know, we're all like 16, 17. So most of our friends, by the time we got up on stage, had to go home because of like curfew. So it was pretty much all that was left was parents.
Nice.
And so our friend gets up on stage and they start playing Bloodhound Gang. What's that song? The roof is on fire. And our drummer's very, very conservative parents, like pretty much like ended the band right there. It was he was never able to come play with us again. I think he eventually came back, but it was like one of those situations, but it was a great first show.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Outside of that band, when you were in college and through that time, did you just like play in a lot of local bands?
No, actually. So I went to school in Atlanta. I went to Art Institute, and other than like sort of playing, you know, just occasionally in the evenings by myself, I really didn't do much music through college. You know, when I would come home and see my brothers, we would do like just whatever recording and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that was pretty much it. So it'd be like 3 or 4 times a year. And I would just like binge playing, you know, over a holiday. And then I wouldn't touch my guitar for like, you know, 2 months. It really wasn't until about a year after I graduated and I ended up in DC and I started getting involved actually where I met you at National Community Church. That was kind of like my first, like getting back out and like playing on a regular basis again.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a 4 or 5 year hiatus. I wanted to get a little more connected in like the Atlanta music scene at the time when I was in college, but it just didn't, for whatever reason, just didn't really happen.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the impetus for you starting to write your own songs?
I had kind of always like envisioned, well, I'd always wanted to like write stuff. And, you know, back in high school with my brothers, you know, we definitely like were writing songs. You know, we probably had like 50 unfinished, really terrible songs that are floating around on like a GarageBand file from years ago. Or like Audacity or something like that. But yeah, so I always, you know, had this, like, I wanted to like write, like create an album. That was sort of a goal for me, like a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
So it really felt like this like big, huge, far off thing that only like quote unquote real musicians did. So when I started playing, so I did a little bit of like kind of writing stuff in high school, but didn't really get very far with it because I just never had the time or the collaborators to like push it farther. And then when I moved up here in DC in 2007 and I started getting involved in playing music with National Community Church, it like, I started like writing again.
Yeah.
And kind of like discovered, I mean, one of the things that I've always struggled with is like capturing the ideas.
Yeah.
It's like I get an idea and I want to start writing it. I want to like record it. And then I spend an hour and a half looking for that one like adapter cable that allows me to actually like plug my mic into my crappy, you know, that whole thing. So That's pretty much the like running theme of my music life.
Remember the lie that made me smile. Like arms of a father around a child. I heard someone say that the night
That's cool. I think the first time I heard you play original songs was we played a benefit together, a Haiti benefit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally remember that.
You played solo as Ryan Brogan
Yep.
with your brother-in-law and a bunch of, I think, people who would eventually be in East Coast. Maybe just Taylor.
Yeah. No, Jesse, I think
Did Jesse play drums or did Jeter? I don't remember if that was.
it was. No, you're right. It was either Jesse or Jeter. I can't remember. But yeah, that was. It was. It was for a missions trip. It's all coming back to me, and I think my now wife was like one of the organizers for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I played. That was like the first time I had like 3 songs I played. And that was like the first time I'd ever played like full songs I had written for anybody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I definitely was like, think I threw up a few times the night before because I was so nervous.
This is a running theme for you performing is throwing up.
Yeah, I have pretty bad stage fright. Like I've gotten past it a little bit over the years, but definitely the first few times that I played, like when I tried out for the worship team at National Community Church, like that first night I played, like somebody came up to me and it's like, yeah, dude, you had like a lot of really great tremolo in your guitar. And I was just like, no, that wasn't tremolo. That was just me shaking because I was so scared.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of those songs was Godspeed.
Oh man,
from the first. I only know that because I think Laura has them up on YouTube still somewhere.
Yeah, no, they're probably. Oh God, I can probably dig them up on Vimeo or YouTube.
Yeah, but something.
For better or worse.
Yeah, so that was really the initial stages of what would become East Coast, right?
Yeah, so we were playing. That was kind of the first time where it's like I was finally kind of surrounded by other musicians, and it's like I met you and then Robert Winship and Jesse Eves, Taylor Forey, and then we were playing a lot with like Steph Motter and Jeremy Johnson, and like we started playing for. We played for Steph Motter's album release, and I think that was kind of maybe the impetus.
Yeah,
like the first time I was like, you know what, I kind of want to start a band with these guys, so it was. I mean, that was kind of a bigger group of musicians, but at the time, just from kind of weekly playing together, we had started talking about the idea of like just getting together and just hashing through some like ideas, some original ideas, and seeing what happens. And I think it probably took like a year and a half to actually make that happen.
Yeah.
I think what happened is finally, I kept texting Jesse or Robert and being like, all right, we got to get together and like go do something. Let's go like jam. Let's just get together one Saturday and just like make some sounds or whatever. And it just never happened. And finally, Taylor Forey, who was one of the founding members, he was like, okay, just come over to my house, just bring your guitar. And he had this awesome old, like 100-year-old upright, like baby grand piano. And that's actually how we started writing some of the first like East Coast songs.
Nice.
That it was actually that first time that I brought the idea of Clouds in Their Shape off the very first album to him, and he took that little line from there, and he started playing on piano and then started jamming, and I was like, okay, this is like, maybe we could actually be a band and play a show or something.
You guys recorded St. Elizabeth's. Was that all of your first time doing any sort of studio work?
Could you not tell? Well, that was definitely my first time. I had cobbled together a little bit of like a ragtag studio in high school with my brothers, and we had a mixing board and a couple crappy mics hanging from the ceiling, that type of thing. But that was the first time we like had somebody who like had gear and like proper microphones and like microphone stands and and like, knew how to use like recording software and was helping us record. I think Jesse, the drummer, he played with like bands in Nashville, so he'd actually recorded. And then I think even Taylor had done a little bit of recording in college. But yeah, it was the first time for me. So
yeah. I just remember Jesse saying what song it was, I don't remember, but he was like, the click speeds up, and I was like, dude, it's a metronome. The click did not speed up. You just fucked it up, man.
It took us a few years to realize that it wasn't the click that was speeding up. When we recorded If I Sleep, Mike Manuel, who recorded us, he's great. He was really awesome. Part of like the process was him like helping us understand how terrible our rhythm was. So he just made us go practice for like a week straight with a click. And when we would record parts, he would just like slap his leg, and he would, the farther off the click we would get, the louder he would yell click, 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 and he would just be screaming at us, click. It really scarred me, but it really helped my tempo in the long run.
That's so funny. What was the emphasis to work with Mike? I mean, he's got a pretty impressive discography.
We kind of lucked out there. So we played. We'd been playing shows around DC. We got kind of lucky and just like, we were always just kind of putting ourselves out there for opening spots, and we got a spot at Rock and Roll. I can't even remember who we opened for, but Mike was doing sound that night. And so we played a bunch of stuff off of, it was pretty much all of St. Elizabeth's, and then like a few new ideas. And after the show, Mike was like, hey guys, I liked your set. He's like, I have a studio set up in Mount Rainier. If you guys ever want to come by and like check it out and record something, let me know. So we've like had sound guys say that before, and then it's like you do like some Facebook and you stalking, and you realize that he's got like a corner with like a Behringer mixer and like but like we started looking into Mike's setup, and we realized, Mike actually was an engineer for like, you know, Dashboard Confessional albums. And like
Yeah. He did a Mark Commission Brand of Scar. He did the Further Sin Forever Penny Black record and Megan Trainor and like
I mean, he
Mike
like
Shinoda.
he tours with like Brand New and all these other. So we were like, oh shit, this guy's totally legit. And so we shot him over an email and we sent him a new song, pretty much as kind of like a test. We're like, we've got like one song. Would you be up for like just us sort of doing this one thing together as sort of a single? It was Tobacco Teeth.
Yeah.
And we went over studio and he had like his whole basement, he had like gutted and done this full like amp room. And I mean, it was just like your dream home studio. Like, he obviously dropped some serious cash in it. And it was great. So we recorded Tobacco Teeth and then put that out as a single. And then we came back with like a new set of songs, probably like 6 months later, and started kind of working with him through that whole process. And that's kind of how If I Sleep came together.
What led to the subsequent breakup and then reuniting? Or reforming, I guess, more than a reuniting.
I guess we've had like 2 breakups, 3.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm the only original member of East Coast. But yeah, so for the first iteration, which started 2011, pretty much right after I got married, and we played our first show. That was Jesse. Taylor was on keys, and then Robert Winship played bass, and then I was playing guitar. And then sometimes Taylor did guitar duties, and that lasted for like maybe 2 years. And then Taylor got a job up in New York, and so he left. He headed up to New York. As we like to say, he abandoned us. So we didn't really, at the time, Jesse was also, I think, having his first kid. So like we kind of just like, you know, went on hiatus / like broke up. You know,
as one does.
And then, you know, Jesse kind of came out of the fog of like the first year and a half of parenthood, and he was like ready to start playing again. So we just got together. It was me, Jesse, and Robert. And we were like, can we do some of this music as a trio? And so we started kind of writing, and we played a show at Galaxy Hut. And it was like just kind of you know what, let's just see if we can do this. We only had a few practices, and it was like a really solid show. So we figured, why not? And that kind of started the next era of East Coast. And then through that process, so that was probably 2013 to up until 2015. And we had a number, you came on and played rhythm guitar with us for a while.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was
I
amazing.
hated leaving.
Yeah, no, we were so bummed because we had been through like two other, like I had like one or two other friends that like I tried to get in to play guitar, and it, just wasn't like, it was fine, but it just wasn't a fit. And then, we were like, well, why don't we get Brian Patton? And we played that show up in Baltimore, which was amazing, with that awesome band New God. And then you abandoned us. You went to Philly like everybody.
I abandoned you like everybody else.
Like everybody does. So and then 2015, I had my first kid. Robert Winship was like had like career stuff happening. And so we were just like, you know what, we're just going to call it quits. So we played our last show at, I'm forgetting the name of the place, over on 14th. It's like the bar on 14th, up past Columbia Heights, it's like a total hole, but it's great. And they have like, I actually think that, I might've gotten bed bugs from playing a show there at one point. Anyway,
DC.
So we played like our final show. We opened, I can't remember the name of the band, but we opened for band. We played like our final show there. And then I had my first kid and kind of went our separate ways. And then we came back in 2017, I think. Yeah. So 2017, Robert Winship, he was like super busy with career stuff. And he was like, keep going, guys, but I'm doing my own thing, which was, it's fine. So it was me and Jesse, and Jesse brought one of his coworkers. He got one of his coworkers, Stephen Wicken, to just come start playing with us. And that kind of really kicked off this last stretch of East Coast that led to the album Finn that we put out last year. So it was just me, Steven, who was playing guitar and also singing. I was really excited to have like another vocalist in the band. Yeah. Because I've been doing vocal duties all this time, and I kind of wanted somebody else to sing so I could like play.
Well, I was going to ask if that was like something that you were excited for, or you like reluctantly give up this like vocal mantle.
I was really excited about it. When we were a trio, between 2013 and 2015, the live shows, we were playing, like the parts on If I Sleep, it's not a ton of guitar parts, but it's enough that I had to do like live looping on top of playing and singing. Yeah. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it failed miserably. I definitely had times I had to restart like Tobacco Teeth like 4 times at a show. And Jesse stopped short of like getting up and punching me in the face. But I'm sure you remember that from at least one performance with us.
Once. Yeah.
But so at the end of that, I was like, like the challenge of doing like live looping and singing and playing guitar and doing like these lead parts over the stuff. I mean, that was awesome, but it was honestly like a relief to have like another guitarist, somebody else could sing, and I could just like play guitar. Yeah. And, at this point we'd been going for like 6 or 7 years. So just having a new influence. Steven's British. So like, he just kind of added a whole new like viewpoint into music for us, like his influences and where he was coming from, what he was into. And that was just like, it was nice. It was like refreshing for me. So
did you feel less pressure releasing a record in 2020, knowing like I don't have to worry about playing a show and finding a drummer to play, and like it's just like it's done, it can be out there for whoever, I don't have to worry about like this extracurricular band shit, just like put the record out and that's it?
I mean, yes and
or was it just like we just want to put it out because it's done and we've been sitting on it for so long?
I think it was the latter, really. So we, like 2017, you know, Steven starts coming over and we start jamming, and pretty quickly we start like getting some songs. We don't have a bassist, so it's just me, Steven, and Jesse. So we get a show at Velvet Lounge, because you can always get a show at Velvet Lounge no matter what. It's easy, low hanging fruit, but and we don't have a bassist, so we're like, you know what, let's just play without a bassist and hope that we can get somebody to come in. And we played with a band we had played with before, they were formerly Butchers and Bakers. I'm totally blanking on what their current name is. They had a friend who used to play with them who moved to CC. We jokingly during the show said, hey, if anybody plays bass, let us know, we're looking for one. And it turned out to be Chris, who's the current bassist and who did all the engineering and recording of this album. So, sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole here.
No,
I'm going to blame it on the Manhattan. But so, like, we had kind of, so Chris came over and played with us, and it was immediately like we were all clicking.
Yeah.
Like Chris had lots of great new ideas that he was like putting into our songs, and like stuff was like sort of gaining momentum. And so we played a few more shows 2017, and then I think early 2018, and then we found out Jesse was leaving.
Yeah.
So at that point we had kind of a full set of songs. We had 7 songs. And that kind of like started the clock. Like we knew we really wanted to record these and capture them. So really we started recording in I'll say summer 2018. And we didn't really finish recording until like early 2020.
Yeah.
So it was at that point when we finally got to October, we finally had everything mixed and mastered, and we had the artwork for the album done, and we kind of had like an idea for release. And you know, I put together some promotional stuff. Like we were just so ready to get it out and be done with it. At that point, you know, Jesse had moved. Me and Chris and Steven were just like talking about post East Coast stuff, and like what we're going to do next.
How do you feel like this record is different? Like this is a band that's basically like almost the span of 10 years at this point. Like how do you feel like your songwriting has evolved?
You know, I think like this for Finn, I really wanted to kind of like throw out all of my previous notions about, you know, how you write and you know, I think early on, you know, we were really influenced by sort of that, like, you know, the mid-aughts like indie rock at the time. And that's what we strove for, and that's really what in my head like I had to be as East Coast. And for this album, I think like just because we had new people coming in, and you know, I was coming into it with like, you know, being a father, and like music wasn't quite like the first thing in my life anymore. It was very much this thing of like, I kind of want to just throw caution in the wind and just let it go wherever it goes. Like not control it, let it be messy, let it be unpredictable. Let it be something that maybe I wouldn't have, you know, associated East Coast with before.
Yeah. I mean, it feels in the vein similar to what you've done previously, but like it's not as drenched in reverb and like in your face and atmospheric. It breathes a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, my Finn was like an album that was very much influenced, like a different set of influences than like If I Sleep or St. Elizabeth's. Like St. Elizabeth's, we were listening to a shit ton of The National and Radiohead and
Pumpkins.
yeah, Pumpkins, all that. Yeah, that was like, and you can really see that,
Yeah.
hear that, and then Saint Elizabeth or If I Sleep, you know, it was more. It was kind of continued in that vein, and for Finn, like the past few years, I've kind of really fallen down the rabbit hole of like Castle Face Records and like, you know, John Dwyer and you know, the OCs and like Ty Segall, that whole West Coast like garage stuff, and then also stuff like Proto Martyr is probably one of my favorite bands of the past few years. Like just everything they put out, and Mets, and so like noisier, more aggressive stuff. Is listening to a lot more, and also a lot more electronic music, which I think you can hear a little bit in Finn. Yeah. So I think it just kind of made me want to let go of the songwriting process. Yeah. Whereas before I was maybe a little more anal about what I was like writing.
Yeah. Did you name it Finn because this is the final East Coast record?
That's a great question. I don't know. So we named it Finn. We had a really hard time coming up with the name, and we had like 2 years to do it, and we didn't come up with Finn until literally like a week and a half, probably like 2 weeks out from
right before it went on Bandcamp.
Yeah, exactly. I was like finalizing the artwork, and we had all these other names, and we were like using names from like Finn really, I think, came from like we did this album. This was like the first album we did ourselves, and where, you know, If I Sleep in St. Elizabeth's, you know, I'm like, they're, you know, quote unquote studio albums. We didn't track it live, but this album was like practically written in the studio. Like we actually, like the last show we played with Jesse, we played almost all of these songs, and you listen to those songs at that show, we recorded it, and then you compare them to the album, and it's like, they're
so different.
Yeah. Some of the songs are not too far off, but some of them are like 4 miles away from what they were originally. Nice. So with this, and part of this, I have to really give credit to Steven and Chris. Chris, who played bass and some of the guitar parts here on Finn, he kind of put together a studio from scratch to like self-record this. Jesse we couldn't actually get Jesse's drum parts tracked for this before he had to leave for moving to Chicago. So what he did is he recorded all the scratch parts, and then Chris went up to New York, and he had an old friend of his, a drummer who's awesome drummer, Patrick, who actually recorded the parts.
Nice.
So it's like, so
Jesse wrote them, somebody else recorded them.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, they got a little bit filtered through Patrick's like sort of influences, so stuff shifted a little bit. So he brought it back, and we really started recording everything in earnest with these like drum tracks that he had done in like a loft space and like, you know, out in the country in New York somewhere. I don't know. And from there, we just started layering in sort of the scratch tracks we had for everything, and started replacing stuff. And, you know, it's like this was an album we gave ourselves space to like add like, you know, 4 guitar tracks, you know, like there was no pressure. We were never going to play this live.
Yeah.
So it was like, we didn't have to worry about replicating it, and we just like went down the rabbit hole.
Do you see that as like the future of East Coast? Like you're the only original member. You can kind of keep it going as long as you want, as long as you have songs. That's like a studio creative outlet.
Yeah, I don't know. Like part of me thinks that, maybe we let, this be the last East Coast album. There's another part of me that kind of just wants East Coast really to just be, I mean, if I'm really honest, music, like playing in bands has been like my kind of primary social outlet.
Yeah.
So, if East Coast continued, I really think I just want it to be, I just invite new people in to play all the time. And every few years, maybe we like put together another record.
Yeah.
And it could just be sort of this loose collective of, just anybody who's I've ever like had a musical connection with to come in and play.
Yeah.
I think East Coast as sort of like a band that, we have these weekly practices and we, go book shows and everything. That's probably gone.
Yeah.
But
right.
East Coast as sort of like, my little, like my way to like get musicians I want to play with to come play music with me. Yeah, that's probably what it'll be.
Did you ever think about the band as a DC band as part of the history and the long lineage of the scene from DC?
I think of it more as like a really small footnote on a footnote.
Right.
I'll say like the DC scene is especially when we were like really trying to do something, which I'd say is more the first two iterations of the band. We were like really trying to insert ourselves. It was hard because we weren't hardcore or punk. We weren't, we weren't like noise rock or anything like that. We were, people liked playing with us and local bands we play with, they like always like, oh yeah, your set's great and everything. But like finding a home in the scene is something I felt like we never were able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's just a little bit a case of the DC scene can be a little bit segmented.
Yeah.
It's like, there's not like, you have your like, your bands here that are like legendary and everybody knows about and all that. But, a lot of the local bands here, I kind of feel like, they play with their buddies who are also in a band and run the label, and they got the house over there, and they all play together. And, if you're friends with them, then you might play those shows, but otherwise you're never going to get in there.
Yeah. And it's such a national hub too for bands coming in and through all the time.
We were I think really fortunate in that, like we, one of the things we did early on was like nobody knows who the hell we are. So if we get a show, we're going to show up on time. We're going to be really fucking nice. We're going to like tip all the bartenders and we're just going to make it so that like everybody
like us.
Like, that band was nice. Like, even if they were total shit, that band, like, they showed up, they got on stage fast. They didn't ask for like a, monitor mix for like 30 minutes. Right. And so we did that. And I think that actually did kind of help us get good shows, because they were like, well, those guys aren't assholes and they'll show up on time.
Right. Who's that band we opened for at Black Cat that took up all the sound check time?
Oh God. That was like backstage.
Yeah, backstage at Black Cat.
Oh God.
They had like opened for Fleet Foxes or something, or
Yeah. They were like they were an amazing band, but you're right. They took so fucking long.
I just remember we set up and then we went backstage and then we walked out on stage and it was like, oh shit, this show is sold out and it's packed.
We had a few shows like that. Like we played at DC9. We opened for Little Green Cars, and they were this Irish band that had like a few like hit singles.
Yeah.
They sounded fucking incredible live. Like they had some of the best vocals I've ever heard live. And we get up on stage and it's like after the first song we look up and it is just completely packed. And we were like, how the hell did we get this show?
And then the next week we played for 10 people or something.
Right. Then you play a show at Velvet Lounge where there's 5 bands and the 2 of the bands don't want to share drum sets and the only people that are at the show are the other band.
Local band life. So much fun. That's cool. Do you have a DC bucket list of things you want to do as a band? Play Fort Reno when shows up and again, or like, I don't know.
Oh God. Yeah. We definitely tried to play Fort Reno. We never quite got in. Just again, I think we weren't quite punk enough. And there's always enough punk bands that you don't have to go outside of that genre for Fort Reno in DC.
Yeah.
But I think 930 Club, like playing a show there, that's definitely bucket list. There was definitely some bands we wanted to play with, but at the time I can't remember them now, but at the time I had some bucket list bands. One of the things that actually I was able to tick off on my bucket list is, I was really obsessed with All Songs Considered for a number of years and, play a show that Bob Boylan was at, and the Little Green Cars show. We played that show. It was just one of those like great shows where you just get up there and it's so much is happening and you just play and everybody is just like, you just like blow through the set and it felt great. And the crowd was really into it. And I'm trying to get my shit off stage and I'm putting my amp over and this like hand comes out of the crowd. It says, "Hey, great set." And I look up and it's Bob Boylan.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that was definitely bucket list. And then like, I actually after the set, I ended up talking to him for like 30 minutes about South by Southwest. And that was definitely check.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our theme song was written and composed by the legendary Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe on iTunes and give the show a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, click on the Patreon link at asthestorygrows.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.